different. This is an interview and a bit of a demonstration of the Mercury Oracle with Neeff, the wonderful creator of the Oracle. You will have, if you've come to this via my community post, you'll know that I've been talking about this Oracle ever since it went live on Kickstarter, which it is at the moment. I'm very excited about it and I'm really hoping that it funds. So hopefully this demonstration will engender some interest in you, or you'll let people know that you know who read about this wonderful Oracle. So what Neeff happily agreed to do was have a little bit of a chat with me about how he came to develop the Oracle, a little bit about that. And then I did ask my wonderful collective in my community post to provide some questions for us. So we're going to go through 3 or so questions for the collective from the group that were suggested that are particularly good for the nature of this Oracle, so you can see it in practice. So that's enough blather from me. Let's have a chat to Neeff. So welcome, Neeff.
Thank you. Feels good to be here.
Brilliant. So I thought we'd sort of start at a pretty high level. One of the things that intrigued me with the Oracle was you called it the Mercury Oracle, and I'm very attached to Mercury. So I'd be interested in the inspiration generally for what you were trying to do, and also why did you call it the Mercury Oracle?
Yeah, so I began creating this in the first week of lockdown in Denver, Colorado. And I had a line of events lined up for my art practice. I was known as an event guy, and that all shut down. And I just started illustrating, and sooner rather than later, I realized, it took about a month before I realized I was even making something. And then, after a while, something emerged that really functioned, and I started sending little copies to my friends, and they were getting really excited about it because it was something totally different and new, and it just sort of, it's like when you're speaking to something or working with spirits or anything like that, it's like a muscle, and so over time, this kind of thing got louder and moved through me, and it felt like it was something that wanted to be made. So the way that the name came about is I had a really convoluted name for it for a little while. I can't even remember what I was calling it, but it wasn't sitting right. And I actually asked it. I was like, well, is this what you want to be named? And I had by then put the yes and the no card in there, and it just said blatantly no. Okay, well, so I left the cards out for about a week, and every day through the week at 2 p.m. I would go and pull a card. What do you want to be named? And every single day without fail, it pulled the Mercury card. And so it just makes total sense for what it is. It's delivering messages, and it is pretty mercurial in the way that it's set up, or I like to say Mercurian. It's like the positive version of mercurial. And this thing has a life of its own and a spirit of its own. And I absolutely love the darn thing.
Which is excellent. And I love the look of it as well too, as I think I sort of said in a comment on one of your sort of demonstrations of it on your channel. I have a very structured way of reading. Anybody who is familiar with my channel knows that. So that sort of capacity to have different lenses and different pathways and so forth that's in your deck, to me, it was like, not only did Mercury draw to me anyway, but I thought, oh, this is perfect. It's exactly the way I like to look at complex situations. Now, it's pretty clear from what you've said in the campaign sort of documentation or what's up on Kickstarter that you've drawn together a lot of different themes, a lot of different knowledge. So I'm wondering if you want to have a talk about what some of the key sort of areas of knowledge or tradition you kind of brought together and why.
Right. Yeah. So the Oracle itself is basically everything I've ever learned in a lot of ways. And then it taught me a lot of stuff along the way and actually deepened my understanding of the different metaphors and techniques and cosmologies in there. It came about pretty naturally out of just a curiosity for trying to explain and do things that are a little strange in the world ultimately, and then it became more of a really kind and approachable system with little things in there. There's one, this card, for instance, is Go Through the Mirror. I was part of this forum where people were experimenting with mirrors, and mirrors actually are magical objects that have been used for a very long time to travel or to see to different places, that kind of thing, as sort of windows. I keep a black mirror on my desk for scrying, right? So each one of the cards is a magical technique. And then a lot of them are just super basic wisdom, like be kind. You know, the idea is that I wanted to make something as diverse as possible, but be as robust as possible. And so I really tried to pull from the stranger things that I've learned, as well as, you know, I grew up with astrology. We had a family friend that would send us cassette tapes every December that would outline, you know, our entire year. And so things that have always been close to my heart, but at the same time, I would get these ideas to draw something, not knowing what they meant, and then it would teach me what it meant. And then through synchronicity, you know, I love to do research as well. So this is all heavily researched, but sometimes I would make stuff a little bit backward, and figure out what it meant afterward through contextualizing the cards and just through finding information on different techniques and things like that. Like, for instance, I always tell people about one card, which is the Conceal Yourself. I drew it and I didn't know why. I saw the image, I drew it, and then shortly thereafter, I was struggling against it because I was like, how is this going to fit into the deck? And then it sort of taught me that concealing oneself or being transparent is kind of a paradox. And so you're both being completely seen and being completely see-through at the exact same time. So it's about being in the world and letting the world move through you. And for me, that was really powerful to learn that, just kind of by making a thing and letting it kind of dictate what it means on its own, you know.
Brilliant. Actually, there's that. I can really relate to some of that. As people, again, on my channel know, I grew up with astrology. My mother was an amateur astrologer and my brother became a professional astrologer. So it's sort of interesting how that permeates your life when you have those conversations when you're young. The other thing that strikes me that I'd be interested in your thoughts on is that the way you're talking about how you use art, I write, and I think that writing for me can be channeling. So do you feel that the art is a form of channeling for you?
Yeah, absolutely. It very much is. When something wants to be made, it definitely is made. And sometimes it's quite the process. I mean, you can see some of my visual art on the wall over there. That particular piece was quite a handful to get through. It wanted to be made. And then shortly after, you know, it's kind of a violent scene. There's a owl on there and smoking guns and all sorts of stuff. And this happened right before all of the rioting and things like that broke out in across the states, and it was just right outside the door, right? So these things, sometimes they're these little echoes, I think, from the future or something like that. I'm not exactly sure where they come from, but I write a lot as well. I always feel like I'm a pretty proficient writer, and you know that. I think, especially with the way that the book started to unfold, that was definitely something kind of just happening. You know, it wasn't something that I was trying to really do. And I think that's where a lot of the when it can be difficult is depending on how open you are. And I think it can catch you in a very open state much easier. But yeah, all around.
Excellent. So why don't we show the deck in action? So as I said, we've got some questions and we had a bit of a chat about all the sort of questions that people sort of put forward, and thank you to my lovely collective for the suggestions. I think we're sort of starting with 3, depending on time we may explore some others, but you know, let's get into a bit of depth with it. So do you need to like shift your thing to sort of put your camera on so that you can see the reading, or are you just going to hold the cards up? What works for you?
An overhead camera here, and then I've got a couple different cameras, and I can edit it all together in post and make it look really nice. But I will show cards all around.
Okay, cool, excellent. All right, so let's go with it. So the first question that we thought would be a good way of showing some of the sort of structure and the way that the deck works is what is this collective, the people who are watching this, being guided to create? And that nicely fits with what we were just saying about the kind of spiritual aspect of creativity. So let's see what Spirit wants to say.
So this here is the Mercury Oracle. Let's get into it. So the question is, what are we being guided collectively to create? It's an interesting question too, with everything that's going on in our solar system and all of the galactic weather. There was just a new moon in Pisces.
Yep.
And I've been feeling that one strong. It's been a good time to make some cards happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are we being guided to create here? So I've got a couple different cards here. The first of which is patience. We've got Jupiter, and then we've got this one, consolidate your body. So consolidating your body is about getting your house in order, right? Our body is our home, our temple. And then we've got Jupiter as well, which is luck and abundance. It feels like luck and abundance in this reading. And then we've got giving patience to the road here. I'll show you that guy again. I really love that card.
Yep.
The road. There's a lot of motifs that go through all of the cards, and that road pops up quite a lot. So let's see what covers these guys. And my deck is funny. Sometimes it will tell if the reading if it doesn't need anymore, it will tell me. I put mechanics in there, and it kind of just told me that pretty clearly. I got read your omens, ground yourself, and follow your heart, which are, I would read that ultimately. Is it telling me just read the damn card? So we're moving into a place, it seems like, of creating more abundance in our life, and more of that joyous sort of abundance, that creative abundance, and doing so with a patient understanding that things are going more towards order, right? So let's see here. Yeah, it just clarified for me basically that everything that's going on right now is kind of, we're coming out of, it feels, at least in this reading, that we're coming out of something, that heaviness of the last couple years. Now that might come back because it's going to take a lot of time, but generally what we are creating, is a forward momentum towards being more orderly inside of ourselves, decluttering whatever is in us and getting it out. That makes sense.
Yes, that does make sense. Makes a lot of sense to me personally, I have to say, at the moment. So yes, and hopefully for the collective. I mean, that's really great news too, if we're coming out of some of the heaviness of the last couple of years, even if there's still some residual stuff, because I think the world in general could use a break at the moment. So
yes, please. Yes,
okay,
please.
so another question we had, which is really interesting, is what would a shaman say about the situation of the people, the collective that are coming? What would a shaman say? So a shaman obviously goes to the depths, looks at healing, looks at transformation. So that would be fascinating to see with the cards.
Yes. Can you say it one more time so I can really get it in the brain?
What would a shaman say about this situation? Okay. So whatever situation the collective is thinking about when they watch this.
First card is the wait until light. That's like a new day card, right? It's a sunrise. This card, the rise above it, seeing things from up above as not a problem or a solution, but both, right? And then you've got, again, the patience card.
Wow.
Oftentimes these readings, there's a lot of repetition, especially when you deal with like general energies and timing. So these guys, and see what they're all about. And the way that this deck works as well is there's a lot of cards that will dictate a spread. So far, none of them have popped up, but we'll see. Interesting. So we've got underneath the weight card, we've the zoom out card. So we've got the sun in the center of both of those. And then we've got patience is clarified by the all one or none card, which is also the sort of symbol of the Mercury Oracle. And the way that I would look at this is that we have some sort of breakthrough, and we're able to look at things a little more objectively. And that this will bring about, I see a lot of like bigger picture stuff, being able to zoom out and look at things as though it is a new day, and being that this time is bringing, again, it has patience in there, bringing patience, our understanding of each other and in our communications with one another. So it's bringing kind of that patient understanding back. And I think I definitely have been feeling that personally. It seems like we're kind of collectively being a little more soft with each other after coming out of such a long time, starting 2020 of kind of communicating in a harsh way, and it's been softening and softening and softening over time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. Can I ask a question? Like, because when you're talking about that and you're talking about zooming out, it makes me think, when I try and describe to people how I think tarot works, I say it's seeing the present at long distance, not the future. Because and the imagery I use is that I say it's like an eagle flying above two roads that are coming towards each other, and there are cars on the roads, and at the moment it looks like they're going to meet, but choices could change that. Somebody could stop to have a picnic or whatever. So it's kind of like you see the most probable thing coming, but you do have to have patience, because you're watching it from that longer distance. Does that sort of resonate with, that's kind of what I would partly get from that if I was using the Oracle, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. In the book that I wrote, this little book, I often call it, the momentum of the present, right? It's not necessarily the future. It's just everything that you do when you're reading these cards is reading the momentum of everything going on right now. And that can change drastically. I've actually tried this. I was doing a lot of inner work, and I was getting readings that were pretty consistent for a long time. And then I realized one day that there was a lot of like turmoil inside myself. And so I sat for 10 minutes or so and then just got over it, right? I resolved all of that stuff, and then immediately I had found a way forward, the cards changed and things like that. And so a lot of it is dependent on where we're at in our own souls and collectively how we're communicating.
Excellent. Okay, so another question we thought is, what options, directions, portal, whatever wording you want, are available to the collective now to explore?
All right, let's look at these options. Interesting. Neptune popped up, which is kind of fun. So we've got Neptune, we've got this community card again, and then we've got the card of the spirit world popping up here all in a row. So let's see if we've got any spread cards that want to represent themselves. So the way that I would read this immediately, and I'm keeping the readings a little simple. The way that my deck works is that it's relatively simple until it decides to really explode upon an idea. And so you pull a card and then they'll explode. So these are all pretty simple spreads. So Neptune is interesting. It rules the Pisces moon. So this is very much about what this time is about. looking at our dreams and understanding that our dreams can become a reality. But I always tell people to clarify your dreams. Take time to practice clarifying what it is that our dreams are. And so I encourage anyone watching right now to slow down. If you didn't do it on the new moon, there's always time to clarify your dreams. Sit down and write. We were talking about having a writing practice earlier. Writing things down makes them manifest into the world, right? It makes them real. So it makes your inner world and your outer world touch. It's one of the best ways to do it because you're making it physically manifest. So it's about physically manifesting our dreams. And then one of our options as well here is we've got, and the way that I see this too is it's not necessarily diverging paths. I think all of these work together, but coming together. I've got the sister card I just pulled for that. These are all kind of cards of guidance and softness. We've got community in front of us and communicating. And this card is actually really fun. There's a city in Colorado called Broomfield, and this is their first piece of public art. I put it on a big old wall out there. But bringing kindness into all of our communications. And then we've got the spirit world over here. And for some reason, I've seen this pop up 3 times today. Calling upon the dead. And then we've got avoiding all traps, right? And then we've got the spirit card. So we've got 2 cards of spirit and then avoiding all traps. So I imagine whatever is going on right now, it seems like we need to call upon the dead or call upon the spirit world. There's way more people in the spirit world than there are here, and they're not bound by time and space like we are. And it's such a powerful tool that's kind of been stripped out of the Western world in the last 300 years. So my understanding of this is going into your own spirit and meeting with the spirits to avoid any sort of disaster that's going on. We need the spirit world more than ever right now with everything that's going on in the world. So yes, this looks so similar to a reading that I did earlier today.
It's interesting too, because I think a lot of the people that come to my channel are sort of readers, or they're very spiritual people. There's a very strong spiritual focus of the readings that I do, because there's different types of reading channels on YouTube, as you know. Some are about relationships and some are about, just astrology signs or whatever. But I have a very strong collective that I think are both around spirituality and also about community. So it's really interesting that those cards have come up really strongly. Do you want to do another couple? We've got time to do another couple. So what about one of the other ones that we talked about is what does the collective's ego or shadow want them to know? So what might be a bit hidden or the ego might be doing that would be good to know?
Okay, I love that question. What does the collective ego want us to know through the shadow? That there is joy and harmony, right? The ego is constantly trying to bring us, the teacher that is the ego is always trying to bring us back to those states, right? So, and it's kind of a hard lesson to learn often, right? The shadow it coexists with the light, right? The light and the shadow are kind of one, if you look here and here, right? Yeah. So that's pretty straightforward, I would say. Yep.
So another one is the one that I was calling almost the sliding doors thing. So the person was saying, if somebody is considering the road they didn't take, so if the collective are thinking about a road they didn't take, what would have happened, with that other path?
Right. And I think these questions are really tricky. I did something like that recently where I was sailing just fine, and I had kind of a moment. My sister called it a manic moment. And I flew out and left early and all of that, and I was really caught up on what would have happened. But what would have happened, it's kind of like what we were speaking about earlier, like the 2 two cars going to the intersection, something can change immediately. So what would have happened, it would have carried on that momentum, but something changed along the way and you changed your path. So it's difficult to know exactly how far that goes. It feels like those timelines are very, very, instead of going out in these long forks, that it kind of cuts one real short, right? So let's ask, let's see what happens. This makes sense. We've got Saturn here. We've got Saturn, growth, and then we've got the reformulate your inquiry card. So just like
so it's not it's hard to answer.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one to answer because it all kind of comes back to that, right? That essential growth, that feeling of being put through. The way that I think of Saturn is almost like a trial, being put through that kind of difficult energy to grow.
Yeah. And that makes sense to me. I always say to people, like, regrets are somewhat pointless. I mean, you can learn from something if you feel like it didn't go well or you didn't behave at your highest good or whatever, but you're never going to really know what the other alternative would have been, and it could have been worse.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows?
So maybe one more, and then we'll sort of close out. So what else did we have here? Okay, well, there was one which might be a better way of asking what we just asked for the purposes of this, which is how can the collective get out of their own way and make the shifts they need to do?
Sure. Oh, wonderful. So the first card is the demon card.
Uh-huh.
So it's for the demon. Here we are. Mm-hmm. Second card is follow your heart.
Uh-huh.
And the last card is earth. The way that I would read this is to look at where we are causing trouble. The patterns, what I've noticed about demonic energy, it's not necessarily good or evil, but oftentimes when it pops up, it's not doing us service in that moment. It's almost like that shadow energy, right? It's bringing us back to the light.
Yep.
And then we've got heart-centered energy, right? So actually following your heart. Our entire body is thinking, right? So we have a bunch of different centers in our body that do different things. So we've got our moving center, our thinking center, our sexual center, our emotional center, and our moving center is very much tied into the rest of the centers through our heart, right? Our physical body. And it's way smarter than our brain. Our heart is way smarter than our brain. There's imaginal cells in your heart, actually. So letting our heart be the guide is really wonderful medicine. And then earth, the earth card, which I wasn't sure if I should put this in the deck, and then I started using it, and it has its own, it really does have its own resonance, and it has to do with all of everything that makes up earth, right? Earth is this organism. We're part of this beautiful organism that's made of millions of spirits and millions of billions of different things that are alive and interacting with each other. And so finding a way towards the way that I see this as well, it kind of goes from micro to macro. And we've seen a lot of that in this reading, but really trying to embody what it means to be hearts here on the earth and not getting caught up in darkness.
Beautiful.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, I think so. I think it's sort of like, get back into your heart and let your heart tell you the way. And that's, all the thinking and planning gets in the way. So it's really interesting. One of the questions, because I was going to sort of end off with like talking about, how somebody best gets use the deck and learn the deck and so forth. And it's a nice segue, actually. Do you think, because I know in the video that I saw, that I shared on my community post, that you showed how sometimes, as you said, there are cards that come up that kind of force you to look into other things, you know, those kind of direction ones or crossroad ones. Do you think maybe the reason they didn't come up here per se is because it's a collective reading? Would it happen more with an individual, do you think?
Right, exactly. Yeah, they come up all of the time with individuals, and they'll mix together and they'll make a huge map. Depending, sometimes they'll just be the one thing, but oftentimes in the more general stuff, because we're trying to cover a lot of ground, these are metaphorical places as well, right? So you've got a bridge here, and that bridge represents a place that we're all, you know, that person is going. And so collectively, it seems like it could work, but I've not seen it happen yet as a collective thing or a general thing. But yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So on that, so one of the questions that I had is that, you know, there are different sort of ways that people learn decks and so forth, and some just sort of get the average Oracle deck, to be honest, maybe has a theme, but it doesn't have the kind of structure that yours has. The only one I can think of is an Oracle deck that might to some degree is the Lenormand. You know, it has the grand tableau. You can learn a particular way of doing the thing, but you can also read it intuitively. Tarot also has a kind of a psychological structure, I think, and that also differentiates it from the average Oracle. So you're sort of, this is where you've created a system. It's not just an Oracle deck, it's a system. So I guess my question is, you know, for people who get the deck, would you recommend they kind of get to know the structure pretty well first before reading, or kind of just jump in, do some intuition, and then kind of build out from there? Like, what do you think would work best?
You know, I've noticed that most folks don't read the book first. It's something that I definitely recommend, but I did want to make a system that was incredibly approachable. You know, the card divination is a relatively new technology. Divination has been happening for a very long time. And so I realized that divination can do a lot of different things. And so I figured if I made this sort of multi-tool that was both incredibly easy to use and incredibly complicated. I always think of like iPhones or something like that. They're pretty easy to use, but you can do a lot with them. So, you know, user friendliness, and I have a background in art as well as in design and user interfaces and all sorts of stuff. I've done a lot of things over the years. So you can approach it however you like. Yeah. And the way that I set this up is I kind of wanted each little card to be a rabbit hole as well. So it's immediately understood, but can change over time and through different contexts, as well as expands over time. So the understanding of it gets larger and larger. Brilliant.
Okay, so a couple of things maybe to close out. Firstly, just to let everybody know that we're also working on a pick a card together, so keep your eye out for that. I will be advertising that, promoting that just before it drops and people can see it. So we'll see the Mercury Oracle in action again with that, and then Neeff will do that bit, and then I will do a bit with a bit of tarot and some Oracle cards based on the theme of each reading. So that should be pretty exciting as a collaboration. The other thing beyond that is there anything else, you know, that I haven't asked you about or you'd like to say at this point, Neeff, about the deck, you know, to the people watching this video?
Yeah, there's so much to discover within this deck. I mean, I love hiding little secrets and putting little pictures that line up and really just educating through art. And I just can't wait to get this into the world.
Yep, I can't wait to get my hands on it. So thank you so much for your time today. This has been wonderful. I think that the people who come to my channel will be really intrigued, and some, as I say, are readers, so they may well want to come and support the deck, or at least see it in action when it is out in the world. I think you've developed something really exciting, so I'm really, really grateful to be part of the journey right at the beginning, you know, even in this small way. It's wonderful to see it birthed into the world. So thank you, Neeff, for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is fun.
Brilliant. Talk soon. Bye.
Yeah,